Good morning, students. I hope you all are fine. Welcome back to Prose class once again. We were learning the short story of Jack London to build a fire. Okay, so let us once again remember so far it's done. So we noticed that the nature, the darkest, the coldest nature couldn't prevent the man. Okay, means the cool weather of that particular day, it discomforted him. Even his own speed, it turned into, it means his own freezing speed reinforced the danger lurking in those trails. But the man was undaunted. Okay, he remained means to his own rather ego or to his own will, and he ignored tried to ignore. Even his nose became numb. He rubbed them again and again, but he was, it means not as I told, he was undaunted. He was continuing in his own way, and he was thinking of his meal or those boys who were waiting over there, and he was thinking of the time when he will reach over there. So now we will start from page number 41, and from where we come to know that the man was not alone. So he was accompanied by a native dog, a husky. So let us start from there. I know each and everyone has kept his or her book ready with him. So let us start from there. So we will start from page number 37. Okay. Now, at the man's heels trotted a dog, a big native husky, the proper wolf dog, grey-coated and without any visible or temperamental difference from its brother, the wild wolf. So, with the man following at the man's heels, there was walking a dog. Okay, a big native husky. Husky means hard and strong sled type dog. Okay, native dog of that particular place, and it was there with the man. Okay, there, and the dog is quite similar to a wild wolf. Okay, the animal was depressed by the tremendous cold. Even that animal, it was also depressed. Okay, depressed by the tremendous cold. It knew that it was no time for traveling. Its instinct told it a truer tale than was told to the man by the man's judgment. So it was, means the dog's instinct was more helpful than the man's rational knowledge. Okay, the means what the man couldn't judge, it was the dog's instinct that was able enough to make him the dog understand. In reality, it was not merely colder than 50 below zero. It was colder than 60 below, then 70 below. It was 75 below zero. Since the freezing point is 32 above zero, it meant then 107 degrees of frost obtained. Okay, so it was means the temperature means neither the dog nor the man, they knew the temperature is 75 degree below zero, but it was the dog's instinct that made him feel like that. Okay, the dog did not know anything about thermometers. Possibly in its brain there was no sharp consciousness of a condition of a very cold such as was in the man's brain. Yes, the dog did not have any knowledge regarding or had a little knowledge about thermometers, but its instinct makes it wiser than the man. Okay, but the brute had its instinct, as I told. It experienced a vague but menacing apprehension that subdued it and made it slink along at the man's heels, and that made it question eagerly every unwanted movement of the man, as if expecting him to go into camp or to seek shelter somewhere and build a fire. So it was the dog's instinct that made the dog appeal for to seek shelter somewhere, or to to build a fire. Rather, it expected the man to do so, because only the warmth of the fire could have saved them in that in that desperate condition. All right. The dog had learned fire, and it wanted fire, or else to burrow under the snow and cradle its warmth away from the air. Yes, the dog could predict. Its instinct was able enough to make the dog understand how to defeat or how to battle with such condition, such desperate, depressed condition. The frozen moisture of its breathing had settled on its paw in a fine powder of frost. You can understand there was a thin layer of frost on the fur of that particular animal, and especially where its jowls, muzzle, and eyelashes whitened by its crystalled breath. So those those small means the partitions of particles of snow or ice, it covered its fur. Its means the outer part of the husky's face. It covered everywhere. Okay, the man's red beard and mustache were likewise frosted, but more solidly. The deposit taking the form of ice and increasing with every warm, moist breath he exhaled. So even the breath he was it was exhaled from the man, that also helped those ice to turn those snow to turn into ice. Also, the man was chewing tobacco, and held the muzzle of ice held his lips so rigidly that he was unable to clear his chin when he expelled the juice. So the man, as you all could understand, that the man was all over it was snow. It was means the frost turned into snow, and it means it was in an unbearable condition. Okay, and the man's chewing tobacco that holds his mouth, and it also prevented him from expelling the juice. So this condition, I hope you all can definitely understand how the day was. All right. The result was that the crystal beard of the color and solidity of amber was increasing its length on his chin. Yes, it was all over. Even his chins were about to get, means it was like that. It was about to. It was also had that icy layer. If he fell down, it would shatter itself like glass into brittle fragments. Yes, it was all covered with snow, and if the man he falls down, it will break like glass, and into and those ices will like means small pieces of glass. It will turn into many pieces, into many fragments. But he did not mind the appendage. It didn't bother him. Okay, even this coldest weather, this is the worst weather, even didn't provide him any sort of means the man was not bothered at all. Okay, it was the penalty all tobacco chewers paid in that country, and he had been out before in 2 cold snaps. They had not been so cold as this, he knew. He had such experience, but that was not like such bitter, such coldness as it was. Okay, but by the spirit thermometer at 60 mile, he knew they had been registered at 50 below and at 55. Means the temperature was below 0.55. Alright. He held on through the level stretch of woods for several miles, crossed a wide flat of niggerheads, and dropped down a bank to the frozen bed of a small stream. So he proceeded. He continued to walk along the means a creek bed, and likewise. This was Henderson Creek, and he knew he was 10 miles from the Forks. So by that time he reached to Henderson, and he understood Henderson Creek, and he knew that he was just 10 miles away from the Forks. Okay. He looked at his watch. It was 10 o'clock. He was making 4 miles an hour, and he was calculating that if in an hour he can walk 4 miles, he will be definitely reaching the point, as per his expectation. And he calculated that he would arrive at Forks at 12:30. He decided to celebrate that event by eating his lunch there. So see here the man here we find that the man is actually concerned with the rational aspects. Okay, means here the man remained undaunted by the weather, and rather he was calculating. He was calculating rather when he will reach. Okay, so we can understand that he is obviously, as it is already established many a times, that the man was undoubtedly indifferent to nature, and in the same manner nature was also the same to him. All right. And after that he decided, means he will celebrate that event by eating his lunch over there. Okay. The dog dropped in again at his heels with a trail drooping discouragement as the man swung along the creek bed. Yes, the man was walking along the creek bed, and the dog was unwillingly following him. The furrow of the old sled trail was plainly visible, but a dozen inches of snow covered the marks of the last runner. Yes, the dog means there were layers of snow since the last runners went. Means for a long time no one crossed that particular place. In a month no man had come up or down that silent creek. The man held steadily on. He was not much given to thinking, and just then particularly he had nothing to think about save that he would eat lunch at the Forks, and that at 6 o'clock he would be in camp with the boys. The man was busy in thinking that at 6 o'clock, if he continues, if he lags behind for a couple of minutes to take his meal, and after that if he continues with the same speed, he will reach at 6 o'clock to the boys. There was nobody to talk to, and had there been, speech would have been impossible because of the ice muzzle on his mouth. There was no one around to speak, and if there were anyone, it was quite impossible to even speak out because of the ice around the mouth of that particular person. So he continued monotonously to chew tobacco and to increase the length of his amber beard. Okay. In the once in a while, the thought reiterated itself that it was very cold and that he had never experienced such cold. It was not that the man was not even thinking, rather the man was thinking, but he was not bothered. He ignored, or rather his immense pride, excessive pride prevented him to think about the worst condition of the weather. Okay, as he walked along, he rubbed his cheekbones and nose with the back of his mittened hand. He did this automatically, now and again, changing hands. So the man was trying to comport himself by rubbing his face. Okay, see here, but rub as he would, the instant he stopped, his cheekbones went numb, and the following instant the end of his nose went numb. Means as soon as he stops the action, it again his nose and cheeks it becomes numb again. See, all these are the indication or the warning sign, and the man overlooks each of this. Okay, and this is nothing but he overlooks each warning, and this is a sign, and this contributes to his own folly rather. Okay, he was sure to frost his cheeks. He knew that, and experienced a pang of regret that he had not devised a nose strap of the sort Bert wore in Cold Snaps. Rather, he was bothered about the thing he has not bought. It should have been with him like that. But he is not bothered that he should stop his journey. That he never thought. Okay. Such a strap passed across the cheeks as well and sapped them. But it didn't matter much after all. That also didn't matter. What were frosted cheeks? A bit painful? That was all. They were never serious. So he considered that even it will be means the frosts on cheeks. It becomes a bit. It's just a bit painful, but it's never that much serious. That's what he concluded. Empty as the man's mind was of thoughts, he was keenly observant. Yes, that man might be incapable of thinking much, but the man was a keen observer. All right. And he noticed the changes in the creek, the curves and bends and even jams, and always he sharply noted where he placed his feet. As I told, the man was a keen observer. Thus he noticed every change in the creek, curves and bends, and thus he puts his each step with much caution. Okay, he is much cautious before he puts his step. Once coming around a bend, he shied abruptly like a startled horse, curved away from the place where he had been walking, and retreated several paces back along the trail. Okay, means he was quite cautious, and he was rather aware about the hidden pools of the water. All right. The creek he knew was frozen clear to the bottom. No creek could contain water in that Arctic winter, but he knew also that there were springs that bubbled out from the hillsides and ran along under the snow and on top the ice of the creek. Yes, he knew that there were hidden pools, and they might be he knew that the coldest snaps never froze the springs, and those snows, they are in at the top part of those hidden pools, and under that it runs water, and it means the snow of the upper part cannot freeze those waters. Okay, so once the one layer is broken, the man will be straight into it. Okay. He knew that the coldest snaps never froze the springs, and he knew likewise their danger, and he knew that it was dangerous. They were traps. They hid pools of water under the snow that might be 3 inches deep or 3 feet. He was not known whether those pools are 3 feet under or 3 inches, but he knew that those things are there and they are quite dangerous. All right. Sometimes a skin of ice half an inch thick covered them, and in turn was covered by the snow, as I told. Sometimes there were alternate layers of water and ice skin, so that when one broke through, he kept on breaking through for a while, sometimes wetting himself to the waist. So if means those unexpected places or those dangerous places, because they can break through any time, and the person will definitely be straight into one of those shallow pools, and it will definitely make him wet up to his waist. It will completely drench him, And obviously this is going to cause it's going to be quite unbearable, as well as it's going to delay his journey. All right, the man was rather bothered with the second option. That was why he had shied in such panic, and that is the reason he was, as he knows that it's going to make him wait up to his waist, so he was panicking. This was the reason behind his panic. He had failed the give under his feet and heard the crackle of a snow-hidden ice skin. And to get his feet wet in such a temperature meant trouble and danger. It's already discussed, elaborated. At the very least, it meant delay. Yes, as I told, for he would be forced to stop and build a fire, and under its protection to bare his feet while he dried his socks and moccasins. Now the man was much bothered about if he gets wet, then he has to stop his journey, he has to build a fire, he has to make himself dried up, and then only he can continue with his journey. All right, he stood and studied the creek bed and its banks and decided that the flow of water came from the right. So he observed it carefully, and then he came to the conclusion that the water might be flowing from right side. He reflected a while, rubbing his nose and cheeks, then scattered to the left, stepping gingerly and testing the footing for each step. And he was more cautious about each step. Once clear of the danger, he took a fresh chew of tobacco and swung along at his 4-mile gait. And once he became aware that yes, he has somehow overcome that problem, and then he continued as usual. In the course of the next 2 hours, he came upon several similar traps. So in the next 2 hours, he faced such type of dangers more often. Usually the snow above the hidden pools had a sunken, candid appearance that advertised the danger, and there as it is already clear. Once again, however, he had a close call, and once, suspecting danger, he compelled the dog to go on in front. So he faced such problems, such type of obstacles more often, and once again when he found such type of thing, the man compelled the dog to go on in front of him. See, the man's such decision to send an animal before him, it obviously suggests that the man did not have any sort of affection or love towards that animal. Okay, it's quite clear. The dog did not want to go. It hung back until the man shoved it forward, and then it went quickly across the white, unbroken surface. Suddenly it broke through, floundered to one side, and got away to firmer footing. It had wet its forefeet and legs. Yes, the dog, it's quite natural. The dog falls through the ice, but the dog is capable to overcome that and to crawl back to its position. Okay. Suddenly it's up to that much, and almost immediately it had wet its forefeet and legs, and almost immediately the water that clung to it turned to ice. And as soon as the forefeet and legs of the dog it gets wet, it turns into ice. It made quick effort to lick the ice off its legs, then dropped down in the snow and began to bite out the ice that had formed between the toes. So it was the instinct of the dog that made the dog to lick its feet and to bite those piece of ices, so that his toes and all it becomes relaxed. Okay, this was a matter of instinct. To permit the ice to remain would mean so fate. Yes, if he allows the ice to remain there, it's going to somehow keep his leg weight all the time, and it will make the atmosphere more unbearable. It did not know this. It merely obeyed the mysterious prompting that arose from the deep crypts of its being. Yes, the dog did not have any sort of rational knowledge like the man, but the dog had its instinct that saved him somehow in that atmosphere. But the man knew, having achieved a judgment on the subject, and he removed the mittens from his right hand and helped tear out the ice particles. He did not, the man had that idea, the man had that capability or that sort of judgment, sense of judgment, and he tried to help the dog, and in order to do that, he opened his mittens, and he did not means he was about to help, but he couldn't because he did not expose his fingers more than a minute, and was astonished at the swift numbness that smote them. It certainly was cold. He pulled on the mitten hastily and bit the hand savagely across his chest. So the man tried, but it was all in vain, because as soon as he tried to help that dog, his fingers, it became numb, and he was not at all ready to, he was not at all able to help the dog. Okay. At 12 o'clock the day was at its brightest, yet the sun was too far south on its winter journey to clear the horizon. The bulk of the earth intervened between it and Henderson Creek, where the man worked under a clear sky at noon and cast no shadow. At 12:30 to the minute, he arrived at the forks of the creek. He was pleased at the speed he had made. If he kept it up, he would certainly be with the boys by 6. So he was quite happy at his speed, and he was calculating the time when he will reach to the boys by 6 o'clock. He unbuttoned his jacket and shirt and drew forth his lunch. The action consumed no more than a quarter of a minute, yet in that brief moment the numbness laid hold of the exposed fingers. He was ready to take his meal. In between, again he felt the same sort of numbness due to excessive cold. He did not put the mitten on, but instead struck the fingers a dozen sharp smashes against his leg. He tried to make it warm by smashing it against his leg, but it was in vain. Then he sat down on a snow-covered log to eat. The sting that followed upon the striking of his fingers against each leg ceased so quickly that he was startled. Yes, as soon as the action stopped, it became the same sort of numb again. All right. He had had no chance to take a bite of biscuit. He struck the fingers repeatedly and returned them to the mitten, bearing the other hand for the purpose of eating. He tried to take a mouthful, but the ice muzzle prevented. It was all ice all over. He tried to take out his hands, his fingers, but everything went in vain, and then he understood that he had forgotten to build a fire and thaw out. He crackled at his foolishness, and he chuckled. He noted the numbness creeping into the exposed fingers, and then he somehow chuckled at his foolishness, and he was about to build a fire. Also, he noted that the stinging which he had first come to his toes when he sat down was already passing away. He wondered whether the toes were warm or numb. Means it was so cold that the man was incapable of understanding whether his toes were warm or numb. He moved them inside the moccasins and decided that they were numb. Somehow he came to the conclusion that it was excessive cold, and due to that his obviously his toes were numb. So after this much for today, I hope you all are following all the lines. So far we have read, we can understand that the man is not alone. He is accompanied by a dog, and even the dog, by its instinct, it can understand certain warnings of nature, but the man is not affected. The man is not bothered at all. Okay. So this is all about today. We have a live class next to it. I hope to meet you all over there, and if you have any sort of queries or doubts, we will be discussing there. This much for today. Thank you, children. Have a nice day.